A very good day to all of you guys. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to yet another combined series virtual session that we are having. As you guys know, in our virtual combined class program, we have completed Unit 9, which is International Trade and Finance. Okay. Then we have also completed a certain part, that is, International Trade Unit 9. And we have also completed a certain part of Unit 10, where we have done the introduction to balance of payment statement. Then we also looked at, what are the main accounts of the BOP statement in terms of the current account. You guys, I'm sure, remember the 4 sub-accounts of the current account of the BOP. If we quickly go through, we have the goods trade or the merchandise account, first one. Then we have the services account. Yes. Then we have the 2 income accounts, primary income and secondary income. Then, we talked about the capital account of the balance of payment, right? Then we went on to talk. And also we said the current and capital account balances are presented together, right? Current and capital account balance. Then we went on to talk about the financial account. We looked at 4 main sub accounts or components of the financial account of the balance of payment statement. Easy way to remember we used was 3 types of investments are there. Yes, we have direct investments, we have portfolio investments, we have other investments. And we have 2 more items there. One is financial derivatives, then reserve assets. So 5 components of the balance of payment financial account. These components, a brief idea of what these 5 items are, a small note I have included in your study material, right? Those of who are participating in these sessions, you have collected the hard copy of the study material. So there, this is available, right? A very brief note on these 5 sub-items. I recommended that you guys read it once and have a basic idea, because you might need a bit of an idea about what kind of things are considered as direct investments, portfolio investments, then what a basic idea of financial derivatives and the items that come under reserve assets. That, of course, we separately discuss. Right. Then we also looked at the link between the current account of the balance of payment and the financial account. So basically, the financial account is a reflection of the performance of a country in the current and capital account of the balance of payment. Then we went on to talk about the concept of a BOP balance. That's where we looked at an item known as net errors and omissions, and how we use net errors and omissions and ensure that the balance of payments balances. Because in theory, or in theoretically, conceptually, the balance of payment statement should always balance, have a 0 balance, because we record everything in 2 places and in terms of credits and debits. But we realize, due to certain lapses, certain omissions, certain errors, right, overstating, understating, this will not automatically happen. So we use a special item called net errors and omissions. On the other hand, we also learned that there is the need for a concept called overall balance, because by looking at the theoretical approach of the, just theoretically, technically looking at the balance of payment statement, the impact of international trade activities, international economic activities a country has done with the rest of the world, the impact of those activities, the impact of our economic dealings with the ROW, rest of the world, on our foreign reserves, our foreign assets, is not shown by just looking at the balance of payment statement. To get a really proper idea, get a real idea, understanding of what has happened to our foreign assets, foreign reserves, because of our economic dealings with the rest of the world, we have a need for a concept known as overall balance. So we talked about how to estimate overall balance using the change in the net reserve assets position. We do it separately in a certain table. We went and looked at the 2022 annual report and figured it out how to derive, how to estimate the overall balance of the BOP statement. So all of this we have discussed, and it is there for you to view as a virtual resource. Yes, it is there for you to view as a virtual resource in your classroom, combined classroom, right? So then we also looked at how this double entry system, how this double entry method of recording transactions in a balance of payment statement would work. And there I gave you guys a simple guidance, a simple two-step process to follow, and you should be able to easily come up with the double entry for different activities. Then there was another application question to calculate the balance of payment, certain balances. So I gave these two tasks as homework for you guys. So today, we will start this session with that area. Okay, and then take it forward from there. Okay, right. I want you guys to go to page 11 of the study material. Right, in page 11 of the study material, we have application exercise 1, right, where I have given you 7, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, 7 transactions or 7 items. You have to present the double entry for each of these items. 1 or 2 we discussed last time we did the session, but today I will give you the complete answers, right? And let's get this done, right? Okay, so let me go to the virtual whiteboard, right? Okay, so the basic idea is this, you guys remember, right? When you present or when you record transactions in the balance of payment statement, we have to follow the accounting double entry principle. But we try to keep it very simple and basic here. So we don't follow, or we don't need to have all the rules, regulations that you follow and apply in accounting, which is important, but here not so. We need to make sure we are able to figure out what is the credit entry and what is the debit entry. So 2 steps. First step is, once you are given an item, right, figure out whether it's figure out the credit or the debit entry, meaning which account and the sub account do you record this, which account and the sub account you record it. That's based on or depending on the item given. So once, in order for you to figure out the entry, we learn this, we use a small guidance. If it's an inflow, so inflows are commonly exports, receipts of some income or payment, and the proceeds of disposing some kind of an asset, capital asset. So when you have an inflow, the first, if the item given is an inflow, the first entry is a credit entry, and in the relevant account and the sub account. If the item given to you is an outflow, such as imports, payments, acquisition cost of assets, then we record it as what, a debit item. So the first entry in the relevant account, sub account, could be a credit or a debit, depending on whether it's an inflow or an outflow. The second entry is generally recorded in the financial account. Under the investments, we have an item known as currency and deposit. So if the first entry is credit, the second entry debit goes into financial account, currency and deposits. If the first entry is debit, the second entry credit goes into the financial account, other investments or currency and deposits. Is that clear? So this simple guidance, if you follow, writing these double entries is not that difficult. Okay, right. So situation 1, I think we did this in class. Am I correct? Can someone respond quickly? Okay, the first situation. Right. Yeah, we have done. A Sri Lankan tea plantation company exports 10 million US dollars worth of tea to supermarket chain in Australia. So let's quickly do it since we have attempted this. Basically, it's exports and it's tea. So basically, it's the current account, trade account, and exports. So there's an inflow of financial inflow. So the first entry is a credit entry that goes into the current account, the goods or the trade account. Second entry then is a debit entry and it will go into the financial account, currency and deposits, or you can say other investments. Are we okay? Right. Second situation, interest payments of 250 million US dollars by Sri Lanka as a part of an annual foreign debt servicing payment. We've taken foreign debt. On that, we have to pay the interest and the capital. So the interest payment, how do we record it? So interest payments, when you hear interest, when you hear dividends, when you hear profits, when you hear compensation of employees, right? Mainly these items, when you hear, you have to know it is connected with the current account, primary income account, current account, primary income account. So this is a payment outflow. So therefore, the first entry is going to be a debit entry in the current account, primary income, and the second entry will be a credit entry, and it will go into financial account, other investments, or currency and deposits. Are we clear? Are we okay? Right. So moving on, I'll move to the next slide in a bit. Third situation, a Sri Lankan investor purchasing shares in a manufacturing company in India for 10 million US dollars. Now, a Sri Lankan investor has purchased equity or shares of a foreign Indian company. So Sri Lankan investor has invested in an Indian company, but by purchasing equity shares. So clearly it's to do with the financial account investment. Now the question is, what kind of investment? There are three kinds of investments: direct, portfolio, other. That's the key part now. What kind of investment is this? This is where, Putta, I requested you guys to read the notes I have given, right? Brief notes I have given. Let me quickly do this. I'm going to go to the study material a bit. Okay, hopefully you can see the study material on the screen now. So if I scroll back a bit, starting from page number 8, I have given you a small set of points, right? Just to read once and have an idea of direct investments. What do they really mean? Right? I have highlighted here. Okay. Most commonly, direct investments are on what assets? Real assets. Most commonly, direct investments are on real assets. Okay. Right. But there's a certain conditionality also. You can see that. Then I've explained portfolio investments on what? Equity, shares, yes or no? So the knowledge is there, just to capture that. Then I've gone on to explain financial derivatives and other investments as well. Reserve assets, small note is given, separately we discuss as well. Okay, so I'm sure you have figured out now. Where should we record this? A Sri Lankan investor purchasing shares in a manufacturing company in India. Definitely financial account. What investment? Shares. What investment? Come on. Direct or portfolio? We just saw something. I want you guys to respond quickly. Your time. What investment is it? Direct investments or portfolio investment? Come on. Please respond. More of you could respond with that. Just pitch in your answer, please. Okay. Students who are able to respond, right, have responded correctly. Very good. Portfolio investments. Okay. Portfolio investments. Right. So we are investing. So financially, there's an outflow, but we are acquiring something, right? So therefore, the first entry should be a what entry? Debit entry, financial account, portfolio investment account, right? Look at the monetary inflow, monetary outflow. That's the key. Don't get confused there, right? And the credit entry will go into financial account, currency and deposits, or financial account, other investments, right? This is, I'm sure you have done this at home. Now just check your answers, okay? Right. Fourth situation, 5,000 million US dollars sent by Sri Lankan migrant workers as remittances to their dependents living in Sri Lanka. Total 5,000 million, 5 billion US dollars sent back to Sri Lanka by Sri Lankans working abroad, migrant workers. As the technical term, you guys need to be familiar, remittances. What is the term? Remittances. Remittances. Right. So now what this means is there is a inflow of money. It's not necessarily a payment. It's not necessarily a bilateral thing. It's unilateral. It's not transaction nature, transfer nature, right? And it happens on an annual basis, which means it's current in nature. Current transfers. Where do we record? Current transfers are recorded in the secondary income account, and it's an inflow. So secondary income account credit, financial, currency and deposits debit. Are we okay? If you guys can give me a green light, I can go to the next slide. Okay. Just say when you're done quickly, Buddha. The fifth situation, I'll just read it while you guys complete this if there is anything to be written down. Fifth situation, the government of Canada donates 50 million US dollars worth of food and medicine. 50 million US dollars worth of food and medicine. Food and medicine donated by the government of Canada to the government of Sri Lanka. Canada donates not money, material, food and medicine. There's a value for it, but material. So here, the first entry, I'm sure you can figure out easily. It is to do with, again, a transfer, donation. So it goes under the secondary income transfers, that's fine. But the second entry, Buddha, because there is no money coming in, we can't record it in the financial account. We can't go and record this in the financial account where there's no monetary inflow. But all things have to be recorded in two places. If there's a credit, there should be a debit entry. If there's a debit, there should be a credit entry. So what we do is we record this as a complete current account item, right? We don't have one in the financial, both in the current. So I'll give you a certain idea about the double entry, right? Okay. Yes, very good. Secondary. Right. So this would be a proper way to write the first entry. Current account, secondary income account. Secondary income has official and private. This is official. Earlier, remittances, right? I hope you all noticed that or understood that. Here, current account, secondary income account. Remember, this is private transfers. This is private. Get it? Private transfers. But here, it will be official. G to G, government to government. Okay? Right. It's a medicine and food aid worth 50 million. The second entry, current account itself, goods and services, basically the goods item, we'll have to consider that as a debit. Get it? Are you guys clear why we don't record this second entry? Second entry usually goes to the financial account, currency and deposits. No? But why not this time? I gave you the reason. What is the reason? It's purely a real flow. There is no monetary flow here, money flow here. Is that clear? In a ship or in a cargo plane, the things will come. Goods. There's a value, but goods, not financial. Get it? Right. Any questions you can ask? Situation 6. Issuance of 500 million US dollar sovereign bond. Sri Lanka is famous for this now. We don't issue now because we can't issue. We don't have a credit rating to do that. But we used to, since 2007, consecutively issue international sovereign bonds, dollar-denominated bonds, to raise funds for development projects by the government of Sri Lanka. So when we issue a bond, how do we record this? Issue a bond. First thing is, you shouldn't get confused. When we issue a bond and pay interest, the interest component goes into the current account, primary income. But issuing the bond has nothing to do with the primary income account. This is purely financial in nature. So then this has everything to do with investment. Again, the question is, direct the portfolio or the other? That is a question. Got it? First entry we are trying to figure out. What do you think? Issuance of 500 million US dollar sovereign bond. First thing I said was, this has nothing to do with the primary income account of the current account. Well, primary income account only talks about the interest payments, dividends, profits, then compensation of employees, those things, recurrent in nature. This is the bond itself we are talking about. So financial account, where? Quickly. Say what you think. Come on. You guys know this. As they say, you got this. So go ahead. No, need more responses. So how much work we can do during a combined class session depends on how quickly you respond. I didn't ask for the correct answer. I asked for your response. I'm confident it will be the correct answer also. Come on. No. I narrowed it down for you. What kind of investment is it? No. First entry is the first entry a debit entry? Money, is it inflow or outflow? When you issue the bond, 500 million, does it come into the country or go out of the country? Answer that question quickly. Rahmi, Fatima, Noora, Khadija, Kaina. If I said your name properly, sorry if I mispronounce it. Nuha, Oneka, Quinn, Ramla, Ravindu, Sagali, Shifa. Come on, I'm waiting for your responses. I can go one by one. and ask. Don't leave the class. Respond. Into the country, okay. Goes out of the country. So, government of Sri Lanka issues 500 million sovereign bond, Buddha. What will happen? So, why do we issue the bond? Do we issue the bond as an investment, or are we creating ourselves a liability when we issue a bond? This is not the government of Sri Lanka investing in a bond. This is the government of Sri Lanka issuing a bond. So why are we issuing this bond? So that we can find 500 million US dollars and use that money for our development projects. So the money, obviously, it's not that difficult. You can, if you think about it a bit carefully, you will quickly figure it out. Money comes in. So it's a monetary inflow. Get it? So we will get the money. So the first entry has to be a credit entry. Where is it recorded? Financial account for sure. What kind of investment? Direct, portfolio, other? That's the question now. Come on, participate. Give your response. All of you guys, can you do this? I'm not going to do it on the screen, but very quickly because we are taking some time here. Not my fault. Right? All of you guys, can you go to, okay, page 8 of your study material. All of you have the hard copy of the study material, no? If you don't have it, please get it sorted, okay, with the coordinator. Page 8, if you guys look at page 8, all of you, there's direct investments, then there is portfolio investment. Okay. So portfolio investments talks about equity shares of investment funds and debt securities issued by Sri Lankan corporates. Okay. So the ISBs, bonds are another word for financial assets. So that kind of an idea we have in portfolio investments there. Okay. Then direct investments, what kind of things? Yes, shares are there, more than 10% ownership, right? Does it talk about the more financial type of investment there? I've given it's more into real assets, right? Development projects tamai, but there's no real asset connected to it also. No? Then in page 9, we have other investments. What do we have? Currency and deposits, project loans received by the government, project loans received by the government, not the debt securities, project loans received by the government, the credit and advances, right? Then receive reserves of insurance and pension funds, right? The funds that they maintain, those kinds of things. Okay, right. So by looking at then some of you are saying financial derivatives, right? So financial derivatives, once we issue securities to protect ourselves against the risk, we will go for financial derivatives. So the security itself, the bond itself, is it financial derivatives? Yes, Putta, we have to do this kind of a thing. We have to put this much of effort for this one question, because that one question, if you don't understand properly, if that is the one question you get, the question you get in an MCQ, I have let you down. Okay, so this effort I have to put it, right? Again, there's another student also asking, isn't it financial derivatives? Now listen to what I'm saying. Concentrate on what I'm saying. Financial derivatives is a way to protect the risk when you invest in financial assets. is this situation about protecting the risk, or is this situation about investment? Or is this situation about creating that financial asset or liability? This is about creating the financial asset or liability. And Buddha here, government of Sri Lanka is the issuer. The party who needs to protect against risk is the people who are investing, the foreign countries or the investors. So is it financial derivatives? You can think like that. You guys have an amazing capacity to apply your knowledge. But the only thing is you have to have a bit of focus on what you're talking, what you're thinking about, what you're applying your knowledge to. Then you can figure it out. Okay? Right. So I think I have addressed everything you have said. So with that, I would like to present the answer. Okay? Financial accounts, portfolio investment. I did, when I asked you to go to page 8 and talked about portfolio investment, I did give you an idea. I did give you a hint there. I said it is about debt security. Bonds are a form of debt security. Government issues them, private corporations would issue them. So if you want to, you can make a note to make this easy in the future. Page 8, near under portfolio investments, ISBs come under portfolio investments, issuance of ISBs. Again, Buddha, don't blanketly put anything to your head. ISBs, portfolio investment, no. If they give you the interest paid, coupon interest or something like that, they will say, right? Annual interest payment on ISBs. People who invest, they expect interest return. So then it is not portfolio. Why? They're not talking about the ISB. They're talking about the interest payment. So you have to read and think and apply your knowledge. Is that clear? Right. Any questions? Okay. I addressed all the things you had. If you respond, then I will explain. But if you don't respond, I don't know what to explain. I don't know what the doubts you guys are having. Right? Okay. Number 7, one final item is there. This is also, I think, very timely. Number 7, right? Page 12 or 13, sorry. Page 13, number 7, situation 7. The government of Japan decides to grant GOSL, government of Sri Lanka, a debt forgiveness of 500 million US dollars. So Japan is one of the major lenders to Sri Lanka. So I think the third largest lender is Japan as a bilateral lender, right? So out of all the loans Japan has given to Sri Lanka and we are in debt to pay them, Japan says, as a gesture of goodwill, because of our long-standing diplomatic friendship and relationship, Japan says, okay, Sri Lanka, out of the loans you have to pay us, the 500 million, we will, basically, it's like bad debts you set off, cut off, like something like that. Japan says, okay, we'll forgive 500 million. How do we record this? If a debt is forgiven, it's like the debt becomes, a debt is a transaction. You borrowing is a transaction. But when the debt is forgiven, it's unilateral. It's no longer bilateral. No, we got the money, but we don't have to repay. Forgiven. So it goes from a transfer, sorry, it goes from a transaction to a transfer. The moment debt is forgiven. Are you with me? The moment a debt is forgiven, it goes from a transaction to a transfer. Where do we record transfers? A clear transfer item is there in 2 accounts. What are they? Under the current account, we have secondary income. Also remember, under the capital account, we have capital transfers. Capital account, capital transfers. This 500 million of a debt forgiveness we get Is it current or capital in nature? Is it a short-term, annual, reoccurring thing? Or is it a long-term loan we have got and now that is being set off? Understand? Now that decision you have to make. So is it current transfer or capital transfer? Come on. Okay, I've got a response from two of you guys, Ramla and Queen. Very good. Your response is correct. Nuha, correct. It's what in nature? It can't be current, no, Buddha, because every month, every year, on a recurring basis, we don't take loans and Japan doesn't give us forgiveness, no, like that. Right? These are long-term loans. So they are capital in nature. So this has to come into very good. Right? Capital account. Are we clear? Think about it. If there's anything, you can ask. Right. Very quickly, with this, we are going to move on to application exercise 2. You are given a table. You guys, I guided you here. You guys did make some clarifications also last time we did the class, but I remember, right? So you guys are given a table with a credit column and a debit column for many items. And you are asked to estimate the BOP current account balance. And I've requested to show all sub-account balances. So the calculations have to be given clearly. Then the net export value. Net export value. Credits are the inflows, debits are the outflows. So the net outcome is credit minus debit. Net outcome is credit minus debit. I gave that guidance last week. So now let's check your answers. Okay, let's do it quickly. This is the question, right, which is in page 13 of your hard copy study material. I've given a guidance on top of the slide, virtual whiteboard. So let's start off with the merchandise account. So merchandise account, the main merchandise items, the usual goods, export, import items are 800 credit, 1200 debit. What is this 800? Effectively, what is the 800? The 800 is the credit item. So the 800 is actually exports. It's not crossing it off, it's exports. The 1200 is actually imports. Export minus import, merchandise, goods. So the standard or the regular merchandise or trade balance is minus 400. But remember, we have to take a special item if given. What is that? Special item we have to take is what? The special item if given we have to consider is non-monetary gold. Non-monetary gold, credit is 5, debit is 55. So that's minus 50. Am I correct? Yeah. So we get 450 deficit, negative or minus value as what? Trade account balance. Trade account balance. Done. First thing. Then there are 4 sub-accounts, no? First one. Then let's go for the services account. Many service account related items are given separately to bring them together. Just check and see if we are okay. Service receipts and service payments. Service receipts are the credits, payments are the debits. Okay. So financial services, 25 minus 30. Air transport, 100 minus 60. Sea transport, 180 minus 50. Travel, 140 minus 100. Telecommunication, 75 minus 30. So these are the individual items brought into the services account. So the total is a surplus of 150. Surplus of 150. Are we okay? Second account. Can I go to the next slide, please? I want a quick response. Say yes or no. Since you guys have done this for homework, we should be okay. Yeah. What's happening? Why no response? Still writing? I'm waiting for you to let me know to move on. Okay. Right. Good. So, yeah. Can I move on? Then we look at the primary income account. Primary income account. So I've taken the main items. Um, compensation of employees, credit 5, debit 55. Yeah, that's correct. Sorry, credit 5, debit 10. Sorry. Then dividends, I've considered credit 10, debit 70. And when it comes to income, right? When it comes to interest income, there is no credit, there's only a debit. We have only paid interest. That value has to take, it has to be taken as a negative value, okay? Right, not as a positive value. So then we end up with minus 100. That is the primary income account balance. That is number 3. And number 4, secondary income account balance, remittances 285 minus 50. And government transfers is only a credit, so plus value 15. So that gives us 250 here. So that's the 4 accounts that we need to consider. All done. Any questions? You can ask. So we have one more step to complete the first requirement. We have to give the requirement is the CAB, current account balance. So to find the current account balance, you have to take the individual account balances and add them up. Then we get the current account balance. Okay, I'm again waiting for you guys. Right. Then we move on to the presenting the CAB or the current account balance. Remember that abbreviation we use just to remember, easy thing to remember, right? Current account balance, right? So we take trade, services, primary, secondary, and if I have done the calculation properly, I've got minus 150, which is a deficit. Current account balance is a deficit. Done? Then, are we okay? Right. The values are correct. You guys did your own reference also. Right. Next, net export value. So basically, it's a simple piece of knowledge that net exports is what? The trade and services account balance. The common mistake is we only take sometimes the trade account. Remember, this only has goods. Net export should include goods and services, both exports minus imports. That is net exports. Is that clear? So the correct response is a surplus of 300. Sorry, a deficit of 300. Okay, a deficit of 300. Right. Anything to clarify? Hmm? Anything you guys want to clarify? Quickly ask them. No, nothing. Okay. Right. So with that, we complete the BOP area. And last week we started the foreign reserves area, if you guys remember. So if I go to the study material, we can see this. In that foreign reserves related area, foreign assets, we looked at the main foreign assets. I hope you guys found these values from the 2022 annual report. In the 2022 annual report, some of the values for 2020 and 2021 might be different. That's okay, because in the 22 annual report for 2020, 2021, what they have is the actual values. But if I look at the if we look at the 21 annual report, the 21 values are given as provisional values. So that adjustment is normally there. You don't have to panic about that. Okay. Your reference period is 2022. Your annual report is 2022. Just focus on that and get the information. Are we clear? Right. Then I think one of your virtual classmates had asked the question, where can you get the volume 1 of the annual report? Normally they sell both volume 1 and volume 2. So what we do is we keep volume 2 aside because it's the central bank's accounts. We don't need those. Volume 1 is the macroeconomic review. But I think this time 2022 annual report, they have only published as a publication volume 1, right? Normally you can get it in most if there's a main bookshop, right? Normally they have mostly the English medium copies might be available. If not, you can get it from the central bank itself at Fort. Central bank has a in the currency library or currency museum or somewhere they have outlet. I think it should be there. But check, you can call them and check for that. You can get the number from the website or at Rajagiriya, somewhere opposite to McDonald's in that area in Rajagiriya, Parliament Road. You will have the Central Bank Center for Banking Studies and Research and all that. They also used to have an outlet where you can buy, or main bookshops. Those are the things. But if it's a major hassle, then I would recommend, if that is taking too much of an effort and time, I would recommend you can use a soft copy, have a proper regular access to the soft copy of the 2022 Central Bank Annual Report. Got it? Right. I think I've clarified that. So we looked at the main items. I said the more practical way is to remember the items this way. Monetary gold, foreign exchange reserves, special drawing rights, reserve position with the IMF. Those are connected with the International Monetary Fund. Then marketable securities denominated in foreign currency. Then foreign currency loans. These are the foreign assets we have. Foreign currency loans is not the loans we have taken, loans we have given. So as you can imagine, in Sri Lanka, very insignificant value. Right. Then let's explore, we did this part also, general concepts, right? What does the term total mean? What does the term gross mean? What does the term net mean? What does the term official mean and private mean? So what are the words? Total, gross, net, official, private. Okay. So these terms, you need to have an idea. Total means government and private sector foreign reserves, assets. Gross means the assets before minusing the liabilities. Official means Central Bank of Sri Lanka mainly and Government of Sri Lanka or central government, official. Private means mainly deposit taking institutions. That is another way to say mainly LCBs and maybe primary dealers. Okay, right. So all these have been done, right? The combinations, comparisons, all that completely we have done, right? Then the importance of having foreign reserves or assets, right? So I've given a certain way you should look at it. Remember, step 1, look at the appreciation or having more foreign reserves. What are the benefits? Step 2, look at the deterioration. Then step 3, look at the importance of foreign reserves. That's the overall set of points. One of the ways Sri Lanka can get foreign currency inflows that we need is through encouraging foreign direct investment. And what is the importance of doing that? I've given there. Then measuring the adequacy of reserve assets. Measuring the adequacy of reserve assets. How do we know whether we have enough reserve assets? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we wrote this formulas. Did we? If we did, great. We wrote. Brilliant. So how do we measure? We measure how many months we can pay our import bill using only our foreign reserves. Imports of goods, sometimes goods and services we take. How many months can we pay? That is how we measure the adequacy. Get it? So normally we say for a stable economy, healthy economy, we might need to have at least 5 to 6 months of reserves to pay for our imports. Reserves sufficient to pay for our imports. In Sri Lanka, this is what came down to about 2 weeks or almost a week of almost. It was only 1 week we can pay for imports at one point in 2022, the reserves we had. So that's a very, very dangerous levels. It's a country in the brink of collapse. Get it? Right. That's when we decided to stop paying our debts and we defaulted. Right. Then we start with the concept of foreign resource gap. Am I correct? So the Central Bank of Sri Lanka identifies an important indication of the health of a country's international finances through this concept called foreign resource gap. So it's a very simple thing, and they have a very, very straightforward, almost oversimplified definition for foreign resource gap, right? So I'll just give you the definition. You will see it's just the name itself is the definition. So all this we did. Right, here we go. This concept refers to the gap or difference between a country's total foreign receipts and total foreign payments over a period of time. Receipts minus payments, the gap. The central bank formula relevant for the foreign resource gap estimate can be given as foreign receipts minus foreign payments. So our job is then to know what are receipts, what are payments, and what is the significance or importance of the foreign resource gap. What does it tell us? How do we finance the gap? How do we find the money to close the gap? In Sri Lanka, obviously, we have a negative gap. Right. Can you guys write this quickly? In page number 18, please. Are we done? No? Done? Okay. Right. So, as I said, our next task is to figure out what are the receipts, main items of receipts, main items of payments. Here also, rather than trying to memorize it item by item, there is a easier way to remember, right? Especially since we are very good with the items of the current account of the balance of payment. Okay? Items of the balance of payment. Right. So let's move on then. In page number 19, I have outlined the receipts and, okay, right. In page number 19, I'll go to the study material for a bit. I have clearly outlined the receipts. Okay, I have outlined the receipts, earnings, and then the payments. Now here, I have used the word earnings with a certain purpose, right? So you can remember item by item. Okay, we have goods, exports value, service receipts, primary income receipts, and current private transfer receipts. Done. Now, or another way to keep this in mind is, what is the account? The account is, current account. You know the current account items, Nabudha? Goods, services, primary, secondary income. 4. Then, each of those, so what is the account we are not taking? Capital account is not relevant. Financial account is not relevant for the receipts. Okay, right. Next, in the current account, the 4 sub-accounts have inflow items, receipts. Goods account, exports. Services account, services, receipts. Likewise, primary income, receipts. Current private transfer, receipts. So keep in mind, it's a current account inflows that you take. 4 items are there. But just remember, excluding current official transfers. Only thing we don't take as an inflow is official transfer. Because a country cannot depend on official transfers as a receipt or earning when it tries to look at building its foreign reserves or the managing its foreign reserves. Is that clear? So how do we remember this? Current account is the focus without official transfers. Then simple, right? Current account is the focus. Goods account, the receipt is exports. Services account, export receipts. Primary income, receipts. Secondary income, private transfer receipts. Done. Inflows. Outflows, it becomes a bit broader. We focus on all BOP expenditure items. So the current account is there and the capital account also comes into play. Not only that, current capital and even financial account is there. Okay, even financial account is a bit relevant. That's what we are saying. Right. So look at the items. And again here, another important thing to remember is excluding official transfers. Whether they are in the current account or capital account, we exclude them. No, don't take. So blanket rule to remember is official transfers are not relevant for inflows as well as outflows. Receipts as well as payments. Receipts as well as payments. Right. Let's look at the items. Goods account, imports is the outflow. Services and primary payment outflows. Current private transfer outflows. So 1, 2, 3. Now the what account is done? current account is done. Okay? Current account is done. Then capital account, private capital transfer payments, capital payments for acquisition, things like that, all those. So capital account is done, K for capital. Then that's done. Then from the financial account, we take investment outflows and LCB financial asset acquisitions. LCB investing in bonds and other kinds of financial assets. So that is our FA financial account, current account, capital account, financial account items. Okay, inflows, outflows. We are clear? Inflows and outflows. So the gap is the difference between the two. In Sri Lanka, obviously, we have a negative foreign resource gap where the inflows are much lesser than the outflows. So how do we? The word is financing or closing the gap. How do we? Simply close the foreign resource gap, FRG. How do we close the foreign resource gap? We need to bring money in. How do we bring money in? Main things are in bold lettering, right? But Sri Lanka does. Okay, we mainly go for government and private short-term loans. Then we depend on the IMF for different facilities. These days, we are depending on EFF, Extended Fund Facility. Then we go for official foreign assets. If we have, we pump that and try to close the gap, right? Reserves we have. Now, what I marked with the red color marker, what I've ticked off, is what we commonly use or common use to close the foreign resource gap. Okay. What I'm going to mark with the green color marker are ideally what we should do, how we should find the money to close this gap, right? Otherwise, we can't maintain our balance of payment, foreign accounts. We can't continue dealing with the world if we don't close this gap. But to close the gap, at the moment, what we are using are not very, or they are very harmful for the economy. And these are the reasons that we have taken so much short-term loans and got into and used most of our foreign reserve assets to cover the gap, bridge the gap. We have got into this financial mess we are in, and we have defaulted even, right? And so much indebtedness is there. So ideally what we should do is, maybe we should go for things like, right, foreign direct investment could be something we can look at, because that's very favorable for the economy. It builds our economic growth capacity also. Then maybe we can look at something like, to a certain extent, portfolio investments. If we are going for loans, maybe go for very long-term concessionary loans and use whatever the SDR funds we have at the IMF. I would say this is 3. Because that's our money we are trying to utilize, SDR. 4. And then comes the rest of it as a last resort. And our last resort should be going for commercial loans. Going for what loans? Commercial loans. Because with the commercial loans involves a very high rate of interest, which is extremely large burden for us. Right. Any questions? What are the main FRG indicators, foreign resource gap indicators that we have? First one is, okay, impact of, the main one is impact of pressure on BOP index. Impact on pressure on BOP index. We can see how much pressure is put on the balance of payment by our existing foreign resource gap. Meaning how much we have to earn from the international economic activities we do with the rest of the world, which are indicated in the BOP, by to finance this foreign resource gap. How do we estimate the impact or pressure on BOP index, we take the foreign resource gap divided by the foreign earnings. Foreign earnings into 100. Okay. What are the consequences? Now, this is relevant because Sri Lanka does have a considerable foreign resource gap. Especially, we are looking at the consequences of the sources we use to finance the foreign resource gap. Based on the sources, what are the consequences? Excessive dependency on short-term commercial loans shall increase the foreign indebtedness. We have talked about this just now, indebtedness. Exactly what we have got ourselves into now. Okay, this 84 billion US dollar debt is mostly to cover this foreign resource gap and for our lack of savings within the country to invest in development projects. Then increased debt servicing payment shall increase the burden on the national budget because most of the revenue of the government needs to be directed towards repaying the loans, repaying interest. Increase in the impact on BOP index, increase in the impact on balance of payment index. Continue, that shows negative external performance of a country. Continuous foreign resource gap over a long period of time and short-term financing, that combination could lead to the economy getting into a certain international debt trap. Sri Lanka can say international debt trap, done, been there, done that, right? We are in an international debt trap because over the last 4 years, what we have done is simply taken one loan for the purpose of paying another loan. When you get to the point where you have to take one loan to pay another loan and you keep on going into debt and debt, each level you go into more and more and more and more debt, you get entangled in debt. That's called a what trap? Debt trap. Okay, hopefully you guys are clear. Then exchange rate instability, big time we have had issues. Now it's somewhat stable. Considerable inflation. You guys realize what I said when I started this? I said Sri Lanka is living through this. And one of the reasons is we have always had a foreign resource gap. And over time, what has happened is that gap has increased. The bigger the gap, more financing is required, more loans we go and take, more debt we get into, and it becomes this kind of a crisis. Okay? Right. Yes. Okay, Monica Putta, did you have any connectivity issues? No? I assume. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4 marked in green color is ideally what we should use to finance. The red color ticked off items are what we commonly use. So there is a problem with what we use and what we should use as financing sources. Taking money as commercial loans should be the last resort, and we have actually used that last resort also. Got it? Did I answer your question? Is it clear? Right. Okay. When I wrote, I mentioned that a bit, but that's okay. Now you're clear. Moving on. Right. I think we are now able to start foreign exchange rates. Before we do so, I want to take the break now, where I have a few urgent. I have to get back a few calls, right? So we'll take the break now at 10:25, around that time, 20 minutes. Have your breakfast, whatever it is, and then we will start foreign exchange rates. Is that okay with you guys? Can we do that? Yeah. Right. Okay. So let's break and meet in 20 minutes. Right. So we are back after the break and we are starting off the essentials third area, which is essential three, basically an important chapter in unit 10, foreign exchange rates. So first we will take an effort to understand what exactly is a foreign exchange rate. What are the different ways we can present the foreign exchange rate? Then, what are the different systems, regimes are used by countries to determine their foreign exchange rate? Then we will evaluate those systems or regimes to understand what are their pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages. And with that, we will complete a part of foreign exchange rates before going into exchange rate concepts and how foreign exchange rates are subject to change. Okay, right. So let's start off by writing a small description on what is a foreign exchange rate. Forex stands for foreign exchange. Okay, right. So I'll go to the virtual whiteboard. Hopefully you guys are settled after the break. Right. Can you guys make a note of these points? So I've broken it down into the key points that you need to know when you try to explain what a foreign exchange rate is. Just get this done, Pata. In page 21. Okay, can I mention that here? Page 21. Okay. Okay, so as you guys complete the points, let me just run through them with you. The simplest way to describe or define a foreign exchange rate is the price of a given country's currency in terms of another currency. So the price of a nation's currency in terms of another currency is fundamentally or basically what the foreign exchange rate is all about. Is that clear? So for 1 rupee, 1 Sri Lankan rupee, how much is the world willing to pay in their currencies? So USA, how much US dollars are they willing to pay, or how much US dollars can we expect to receive for 1 rupee, and vice versa. Get it? That means for 1 US dollar, how many rupees are we willing to pay? So when we look at the exchange rate between two currencies based on the existing value for that exchange rate, value for that currency, that's called the bilateral nominal exchange rate. I'm looking at the third point now. Get it? Bilateral nominal exchange rate. Nominal meaning during the present period of time. At present, based on the market condition, what is the rate? So nominal exchange rate, which is called bilateral. Why do we call it bilateral? Because it's between two countries, two currencies. So bilateral nominal exchange rate. Okay. So normally when we define an exchange rate, Putta, we are actually defining the bilateral nominal exchange rate. So this is a definition for the bilateral NER, nominal exchange rate. Is that clear? Right. Then an exchange rate can be quoted. That's a good word, quoted, or presented either directly or indirectly. Direct, indirect. I've explained that in the same page. You can see the notes are there. We'll write some examples in a bit. Okay? Right. So this is what an exchange rate is. So another way of saying this, maybe you can make a note. I'm sure you have space. If not, below the fourth point also, you can write this. Okay. Alternatively, you can say the exchange rate is the external value of the domestic. Okay, we're using those words, domestic, external. External value of the domestic currency unit. So what is the exchange rate? Another way to say it is external value of the domestic currency unit. We can say the external value of the rupee is called the foreign exchange rate. So the value or price, I hope you guys are concentrating. The value or price of one currency can only be quoted, can only be given in another currency. In another currency. That's unique about currency. Why? Any other good or service, you can pay in money or pay using currency and buy and sell. But currency can only be bought and sold by giving the price, making payments and settlements using another currency. If I'm selling Sri Lankan rupees, the payments will be in another currency. It can't be in Sri Lankan rupees. Okay. Commonly termed, that's done. Sorry. So two methods of quoting, commonly termed as nominal, bilateral. Nominal exchange rate of a country is determined based on the exchange rate system. It's determined based on the what the exchange rate system. So this is what I call the regime also. There are different exchange rate systems, right? There are floating systems, fixed, the two extremes, then managed floating, adjustable, all these things are there. Right, we'll learn them. Done. Then I've given a heading, forex rate, nominal exchange rate, quotation methods. Quotation methods. How do we quote? Direct quote. What is a direct quote? The price of a unit of foreign currency. Price of a unit of foreign currency. Okay. Price of a unit of foreign currency is expressed in terms of the domestic currency. So when we give the value of a foreign currency in Sri Lankan rupees, that's called the direct quotation or the price quotation. Direct quotation or the price quotation. Look at the example and it becomes easy. Okay. So you can say $1. This was at the height or peak of the crisis. Okay. $1, 360 LKR. $1, 360 LKR. So we are giving the price of a foreign currency in Sri Lankan rupees. 1 GBP is sterling pound, Great Britain pound, GBP. 1 sterling pound is 450 LKR. This is called the direct quotation, price quotation. This is how we are familiar with exchange rates on a day-to-day basis. But there is another way to give the exchange rate, which is the more economic meaning, the more conceptual meaning of exchange rate is this: indirect quotation or volume quotation. Indirect quotation or volume quotation. So here the term volume means how much of the foreign currency can we get, the volume of the foreign currency. The price of a unit of domestic currency is expressed in terms of the foreign currency. Price of a unit of domestic currency is expressed in terms of the what currency? Foreign currency. Foreign currency. So, example, 1 LKR 0.028 US dollars. 1 LKR is 0.022 sterling pounds. Do you see the link between the direct quotation and the indirect quotation? Indirect quotation is the reciprocal of the direct quotation. I'll repeat that one more time. Indirect quotation is the reciprocal. Indirect quotation yes, then your note will be complete for them. When you write the examples, no? You'll have a better idea of the concept. The definition is clear, but with the example, it makes it very clear. So maybe make a note, right? It's in blue color too. Done. So as I was saying, what is indirect quotation? Indirect quotation is the reciprocal of the direct quotation. Reciprocal of the direct quotation. 1 divided by. So 1 divided by 360, 0.028 US dollars. 1 divided by 450, 0.0028222 sterling pounds. So what was the definition you wrote earlier, the additional definition? External value of a domestic currency. So what really gives the external value of a domestic currency is the indirect quotation. What really gives the external value of the domestic currency is the indirect quotation. That's why whatever the adjustments, whatever the calculations we have to do with exchange rates, we do it on the indirect quotation, not on the direct quotation. Sorry. I have given a note in the bottom of the page which says an exchange rate that does not have the domestic currency as one of the two currency components. No? So if we look at the exchange rate between, if Sri Lanka is looking at the exchange rate between sterling pound and the US dollar, then the Sri Lankan rupee is not in that. Then we call it a cross currency or a cross rate. Sometimes simply called a currency quotation. What quotation? Currency quotation. Okay. Just a small additional thing to know. Right. So with that, Buddha, we move on to forex rate systems or regimes. Can we move on? Yeah. Right. Done. Excellent. So what are the main exchange rate regimes we have? So I have mainly looked at 3 of them according to the guidance in the syllabus and looking at the thinking of the examiner. right? So we have, right? Flexible or free floating. Highlight the words flexible and floating. Flexible or floating. Flexible or floating. Right. Um, More or less what Sri Lanka is following is a flexible or floating exchange rate system, but there is some level of central bank uh, involvement, right? We'll talk about it. But as a system or a regime, it's more or less flexible, floating. Then we have fixed exchange rate system. Highlight the word fixed. Okay, so these two are the extremes. We do comparisons here. 1 versus 2, flexible versus fixed. Okay. Then thirdly, we have managed floating exchange rate system. I believe even though the central bank tends to say they have a flexible or floating system, what we do most of the time have is managed floating. That's why I wanted to talk about that also as a main exchange rate system or regime. Then additionally, further, we have adjustable peg exchange rate system, sometimes called pegged systems, then multiple exchange rate systems, and so on. We're not going to take too much time on those, but we are going to focus on the first three, especially the first two. Okay, at a theoretical level, that is what you need to know. So let's talk about number one, flexible or floating exchange rate regime. So is it possible for you guys to quickly copy down this note? This description is based on the examiner's text and teaching, plus it is based on marking scheme references, and I've also taken something, especially the second para, how the central bank looks at, because they are the authority on the exchange rate in Sri Lanka. So this is, I've also taken what they say about the exchange rate system. Right. Get this done quickly. Okay. Right. Now, right. Start with the first para, the one basic definition, right? It says a flexible exchange rate system is a system where the nominal exchange rate, okay, the present or the current exchange rate is decided. So nominal exchange rate is decided based on the interactions of demand and, that's the key, demand and supply forces for particular currency. So what is the demand and supply for the rupee? Based on the demand and supply for the rupee, how do we determine, or when we determine the exchange rate, right, relative to another currency, right, particular currency relative to another currency, relative to other currencies. If it's bilateral, one other currency within the foreign exchange market. Now that is also a bit important, because for the only for the purpose of engaging in international economic activities or dealing with the rest of the world, we will need to buy and sell rupees. If we are buying and selling rupees, demanding and supplying rupees, that means we are looking for another currency, foreign currency. Get it? Right. Now, this simple definition, I'm sure all of you understand and can absorb. So what is a floating or flexible exchange rate system? A system where the nominal exchange rate is decided based on demand and supply for currency in comparison to another currency. So demand and supply always works within a market. What is the market here? The forex market, foreign exchange market. If you want to be very clear, we refer to it as the domestic foreign exchange market. But foreign exchange market is good, right? Central Bank of Sri Lanka says supply is mainly due to the supply of foreign currency. Now, don't get that mixed up. Supply of foreign exchange depends on inflows to the economy, such as export proceeds, money we get payment as money we get as payment for exports. Then worker remittances, big amount of inflow is there. Sri Lankans, migrant Sri Lankan workers, Sri Lankans working abroad sending money, tourist earnings, and direct investment inflows. Those are the inflows. While the demand for foreign currency, again, demand for foreign currency, right, depends on outflows of mainly import payments, exports, imports, right, and loan repayments and things like that. Are we clear? Right. So that's a really good idea now you have of this thing called the floating or flexible exchange rate system. We are going to go into more detail. Specifically, we are going to talk about demand side factors, supply side factors, then we will have a simple idea, not to get confused too much at all, but a simple idea about the demand and supply curves. Then that will help us move on with the diagrams also. Right. Demand. Demand side factors are basically for import payments, we need to pay in dollars. So what do? We demand, I've taken US dollar as an example. Okay, as an example, we are talking about, we'll say foreign currencies, US dollars. To pay for imports, we need US dollars. When tourists and travelers, Sri Lankans go abroad, outflows, we will go and spend dollars in those countries. So we demand for dollars. Then when we repay loans, right, we have to pay in foreign currency, we demand for dollars. And when we are offering grants to other countries, which we rarely do now, when we offer grants and donations to another country, we make those donations in dollars. Payment of foreign loans, right? Payment of foreign loans. The third point was when we give loans and donations, right? Payment of foreign loans. Then foreign private and official transfer outflows. Now, for example, there are many Sri Lankan students who study abroad. So their parents have to send them money from Sri Lanka to that country. So they need foreign currency. Mainly imports, tourists and travelers outflows, then repayment of loans. Main items today are these two things, right? Just give me 1 minute, Buddha. Right. So as I was saying, the main outflows are for imports and repayment of foreign loans. For these two things, there's a huge foreign currency demand we make so that we can settle these payments or make these payments and settle the debts. Got it? Right. Then how do we talk about the dollar demand and the rupee supply curve? Okay, so the focus here is to give you a brief idea of how and one of your classmates is asking a question. Let me outflows through grants. Right. Are you referring to something on the screen, Putra? But anyway, if you just ask asking in general, foreign official transfer outflows are, basically government to government. That's why we call it official. If the government of Sri Lanka, on behalf of the people of Sri Lanka, decide to give a donation to another government, people in another country through their government, that's called the official transfers. Is that clear? Right. Now, okay, as I was saying, we have to have a basic idea, right? We have to have a basic idea of the demand and supply curves. And you need to know the simple link between these curves. That is, look at this, demand for dollars, dollar demand curve is in turn the supply curve of rupees. Why? You give or you sell, I'll use the word supply rupees and demand for dollars. You have to pay in rupees to buy dollars. No? So whenever we are demanding for dollars, we are creating a supply of rupees. Supply rupees, demand dollars. So the dollar demand is the rupee supply. Are you with me up to now? Very simple point to start. Dollar demand is the what? Rupee supply. I asked the question. I want a response. Are you guys with me? Yes or no? More of you could care to respond. Okay. Right. Okay. So if you have a confusion, you would ask. Right. Dollar demand is the rupee supply. Right. Now let's read this. So LKR supply equals US dollar demand. Right. The foreign currency, that is the dollar, that's the foreign currency we are looking at. to make this easy to understand. Demand curve is key downward sloping from left to right. So no confusion about the normal behavior of the demand curve. Downward sloping from left to right. Get it? Downward sloping from left to right. As the price of the dollar, okay? Now, what is the relationship we know with what is implied by a demand curve being downward sloping? Can someone tell me this? What is implied by a demand curve being downward sloping? I have a double-digit number of students in the session. So I'm waiting for a response for one of the fundamental questions in economics. Okay? Not to put you guys under any pressure. What is implied, what is shown or indicated by a demand curve being downward sloping? I'm not asking why a demand curve is downward sloping. That's something else. What does it show when a demand curve is downward sloping? Most of you have given a response, but Putta, your response needs to be a specific, okay. Rahmi, correct. Quinn, correct. What is the concept? This is bread and butter in economics now. What is implied by a demand curve being downward sloping? When I give the answer, some of you will feel very annoyed with yourself. Okay? As I said, you guys always have the knowledge. It's a matter of concentration and listening to the question and taking an effort to put it across. Okay? Demand curve being downward sloping. No, but the demand curve. Demand curve being downward sloping. Come on. Listen to the question. Calmly apply your knowledge. Process that in your mind and put it out. Simple. That's what you have to do during the exam. For 2 hours in the MCQ paper and 3 hours and 10 minutes in the second paper. That's all. Use the knowledge you already have. Okay? Right. All of you know this because I have to assume all of you know this. Right? What is implied by a demand curve being downward sloping? What is indicated by a downward sloping demand curve or a negative slope curve? Demand curve. I'm not asking negative slope curve. I'm asking demand curve. So the answer is, all of you know this. What is this? Law of demand. Yes or no? You know this. Single one of you knows this. Right, law of demand. Okay. And many a times I have said this in classes. I'm sure your school teachers have said this. That is what is shown by a demand curve being downward sloping. Right. So what does law of demand say? When the price changes, quantity demanded, no? When price changes, right? Okay, the application of the law of demand is very simple, no? Right, now, but that question was done. Now, please bring your concentration to what I'm explaining. Don't stay there in your mind. Now come to this. That's done now. Right. Law of demand says when price increases, what do we say? When price increases. Before we talk about, listen. You guys, if you listen, you can answer my questions easily. When price increases, before we talk about quantity demanded, what do we say? Unit 2. When price increases, before we say what happens to QD, what do we say? In classes, you guys have got this. You listen to this and you put it in your head. Very good. Ramla, Fatima, Noha. Yeah. Yes. Very correct. Noha, correct. Yeah, there we go. Yes. Other factors affecting demand remain constant. Ceteris paribus. Important, without that, you don't get marks. You're not explaining. You don't say ceteris paribus. You say other factors affecting demand remain. All other factors remain constant. Quantity demanded will decrease. Price decreases. All other factors remaining constant. Ceteris paribus. Quantity demanded will increase. This is law of demand, right? That same thing you will see with the dollar price and the dollar demand. Got it? Right. Bring that knowledge you have and apply it here. Here we go. Since, okay, read this with me. Since as the price of dollars decrease. Now what is happening? Price of dollars is decreasing. How do we give the price of a dollar? In terms of Sri Lankan rupees. So the amount of rupees you have to pay to buy a dollar is decreasing. Get it? The value of the dollar is decreasing. When the price of a dollar decreases, dollars become cheap. Remember, substitution effect? No need to bring all that. Just go with the simple thing. The dollar becomes cheaper relative to the domestic currency. That is relative to the domestic currency, dollar becomes cheaper. So now dollar is cheaper than the rupee or comparatively. So what happens? Domestic demand, Sri Lankans demand for the dollar increases. Simple. That is what we have learned. Okay. Here. I have ended up deleting everything. Okay, that's fine. So basically, okay, price of USD. Remember, price of USD is given in terms of LKR. You can't give the price of the dollar in dollars. No, you have to give it in another currency, right? The price of the dollar decreases. The quantity demanded of USD, how much USD we buy, will increase. Thereby showing us there is a negative relationship, which means the demand curve will be downward sloping. Okay, dollar demand curve is downward sloping. Now let's talk the other side. Dollar demand is the what? Supply for rupees. Dollar demand is the supply of rupees. Okay. You are going through your notes also. Okay. This is there in page 23. Right. The above reason for demanding for dollars, creates a supply of rupees. When you buy dollars, you have to pay in rupees, supply of rupees. Mainly due to the demand made by Sri Lankans to pay for imports and outflow of capital to invest in other countries. Right. So I'm explaining why there is a demand for dollars. Right. And that demand for dollars creates a supply of rupees. Work with me. Then it says, import is done by supplying or selling rupees, right? And buying dollars, right? We sell rupees and we buy dollars. When the dollar value of a rupee increases, that is confusing? Don't worry. What does it say within brackets? When you get more USD per LKR, you get more dollars for the rupees you pay, import becomes relatively cheaper. Yes or no? Now, you can buy a dollar cheap. That means you can import at a lesser cost. Import cost reduces. Relatively cheaper. What would happen when anything becomes cheaper? Do we buy more or do we buy less? Again, law of demand. We buy more. Listen, thus, third point, thus, the demand for imports paid in dollars and in turn increasing the supply of rupees. Can you see with that? Supply of rupees and vice versa. According to the rupee supply curve is upward sloping, upward sloping. According to law of supply. According to law of supply. Right? The price of the rupee is increasing. When the price of the value of the dollar decreases, value of the rupee increases. So whatever decreases, that is dollars, you demand more. The value of the rupee is increasing. So what do? You supply more rupees. You supply more rupees. So what have we explained now? Dollar demand, rupee supply. Dollar demand and rupee supply. Bottom line, dollar demand curve is downward sloping, rupee supply curve is upward sloping. My recommendation to you is leisurely, but don't do this, don't just ignore this, but leisurely. I have given a small tag in the bottom of the screen on the right hand side. Do you see it? What does it say? It says, what reading? Self-reading. Only if you read this by yourself once or twice with that, it will make perfect sense. Because sometimes when I explain in the class, in this moment, sometimes you feel like you have fully understood. But that real deep understanding and the storage in your mind happens if you can go through it once or twice on your own and think about what you're reading. Don't just read it for the sake of reading it. You're advanced level students. I don't have to tell you that. Right. You know, when you study, you need to do it with that purpose. Right. Are we okay? Then we move on to supply. Supply, the main sources of supply. Sources of supply, you have to make a note. After that, we'll talk about the dollar supply, the rupee demand. So, right, then we can complete the demand supply discussion. Right, get this done soon. How are we doing? Okay. Done. On page 23. Now I think we can do this part quickly, no? Dollar supply, rupee demand. So make sure you are able, this part of the note is complete. It's near, basically it's perfect, right? In terms of the content. So now you know actually how to explain why the dollar demand curve is downward sloping and the rupee supply curve is upward sloping. Now you know how to explain why the dollar supply curve is upward sloping and the rupee demand curve is downward sloping. They will always ask in that combination, and you know how to explain the 3-point explanation. That's all. Generally, you can talk about the dollar demand and the dollar supply also. Okay, that is the first paragraph that is given in page number 23 under the heading a demand for dollars in turn creates a supply of rupees. There's a small basic idea given. Then I've also explained both dollar demand and rupee supply. How does it connect? Right. Okay. Yes. Any questions? No? We are okay? Right. What was the guidance I gave you guys few minutes ago? What did I say? That you have to read this part of the note on your own with purpose to 100% make sure you deposit it very solidly in your mind. Okay? Right. And think about what you read. Okay, so what is the main reason we get inflow of dollars? We get a supply of dollars, export earnings, right? That's a major factor, export earnings. Then remittances, big inflow, and travel and tourist inflows. Others are there, but these are the major inflows we have. Then a supply of dollars in turn creates a demand for rupees. Now the other side of the story. So USD supply, LKR demand. The foreign currency, the dollar will say, supply curve is what? Foreign currency or dollar supply curve is upward sloping. It is upward sloping from left to right. So what does it imply? The law of supply. It implies the law of supply. Which means, right? Which means, very good. Yes, law of supply. Which means when the price of the dollar increases, we supply more dollars. When the price of the dollar decreases, we supply less dollars. Law of supply. So it says as the price of dollars decrease, the dollar becomes cheaper relative to the domestic currency. So dollar becomes cheaper, that is rupee. That is the rupee, rupee income earned by selling dollars decreases. Thus, domestic supply of the dollar decreases. Dollar price decreases, dollar supply decreases. That is the basic idea you have to get. Are we clear? Any product, Puta, if you get a lesser price, you supply less. If you get a higher price, you supply more. Are we clear? So this is a basic way to explain the dollar supply curve. Now we are going to connect it a bit and explain along with the dollar supply, the rupee demand also. Along with the dollar supply, we are going to explain the rupee demand as well. Okay? Right. Read this with me, one point at a time. So dollar supply, demand for rupees. The above reason creates, okay? Above reasons, That is the list you wrote. Remember, reasons create a supply of dollars, exports, tourist inflows, remittances, all that. Supply of dollars and the demand for rupees. When you supply dollars, you demand for rupees because dollars are converted to rupees. Mainly due to the demand made by foreigners on Sri Lankan exports, mainly for Sri Lankan exports and capital into the country and all that. Right. Here we go. Exporters, export buyers, that is people who buy our export, and foreign investors supply or sell dollars. They are the ones who supply dollars. And what do? They buy or demand for Sri Lankan rupees. Sri Lankan rupees. When the dollar value of a rupee decreases, confusing? Look at what is within brackets. That is, when you get less dollars per rupee, when you get less dollars per rupee, what will happen? Look at the supply side of it. No, when you get less dollars for a rupee, dollar supply decreases. But, okay, when you get less dollars for a rupee, dollar supply decreases. Now, it means the rupee has become very, what, relatively cheap. Rupee has become cheap. So now look at the demand side. When something is cheap, what do? When something is cheap, we buy more. Yes or no? So the rupee demand curve is downward sloping. Why? Value of the rupee decreases, demand for the rupee increases. Negative relationship. Thus increasing the foreigners' demand for rupees because rupee is cheaper, increasing demand, which means for rupees. Accordingly, the rupee demand curve is downward sloping from left to right. Is that clear, Buddha? So always we connect the dollar demand, rupee supply, dollar supply, rupee demand. It's very easy to remember. If it's demand in one, supply in the other. Excellent. Very simple. And like the demand and supply curves for normal goods and services, dollar demand, rupee demand curves are downward sloping. Dollar supply, rupee supply curves are upward sloping. We explain why they are downward sloping, upward sloping, or we try to explain the law of demand for currency demand and supply. We try to explain the law of demand and supply for currencies based on when the value of the dollar decreases, that means the value of the rupee increases. Get it? When value of the rupee decreases, value of the dollar increases. So it's a very simple story here. Okay? It's a very simple concept here. Make sure you read this one more time on your own, right? Only and only then it will make sense, right? Yeah, I'll do it when we look at the diagrams. I'll explain something. Then I've also given the broad determinants. Earlier we gave separately demand and supply. No? Now, what are the broader determinants of exchange rate volatility, or when demand supply changes, what causes demand supply changes broadly? So international trade flows, definitely. Import export flows, when they change, demand supply for currency will change. Capital movements, price volatility and speculation, economic resilience and government policies are there. The level of economic resilience, I'll explain some of those in the future, we will learn, right? Then geopolitical factors like different wars breaking out, other kinds of, pandemics and things like that have an impact, no, Buddha, right? Security risk have an impact on the economy. And then capital market, stock market movements and business confidence, all of these broadly have an impact on a country's, foreign exchange rate, especially if the exchange rate is decided based on demand and supply, because these things have an impact on the demand and supply for currency. Got it? Any questions thus far? Are we okay? Yeah, can we look at the diagrams now? Yep. Okay. Here we go. Page number 24. Just check if the headings are correct. Flexible exchange rate system. Direct quotation. Yes? Direct quotation. Yeah. Seems okay. So can you guys get this diagram done? Now, hold on. Hold on. When you do this, yeah, I feel if you can just have the, yeah, I've given a comparison here. Now, but listen. In page 24, listen. In page 24, when you draw this diagram in that box given, if you can do it more towards the left aligned, left-hand side, and create some space on the right-hand side, especially the top right-hand corner, you can have the same diagram for rupee demand supply. You get what I'm saying? And I would appreciate it if you guys have a red color pen. You draw the supply curve with red. And if you don't have a green color pen, use a blue or another different color pen. Okay? Right. For the demand curve. So what I'm trying to say is, just give me a minute. Right. What I'm trying to say is, here you can have the same diagram, but in terms of, right? But in terms of the rupee demand and rupee supply. Get it? Rupee demand and rupee supply. So here what you can have is 1 USD equals LKR. Do you see the difference? Here $1 equals LKR. Here 1 USD equals, sorry, I wrote it the other way. My mistake. Hold on. Right. 1 LKR equals USD. Get it? And here it's the quantity years of LKR, rupees. Just the R is also enough, rupees. Get it? Right. So now dollar demand is in red. Sorry, dollar supply is in red. No? Are we clear? Dollar supply is in red. Then match that with the rupee demand, because dollar supply creates a rupee demand. Dollar supply creates a rupee demand. Demand for rupees. LKR. Okay, demand for rupees. You don't have to write rupees, but you understand demand for rupees. Is that clear? Demand for rupees. Then dollar demand creates a supply of rupees. Here, green color dollar demand curve creates a supply of rupees. Rupee supply. Okay, rupee supply. And that is how we decide the exchange rate in the other method. So here you will get the exchange rate. Okay. So we say no, $1 is 100 in our diagram. So that means we have 0.01. This is US dollars. Okay. 0.01 US dollars. USD. Get it? The same diagram for rupee demand supply. How do we do it? Okay. Can you get this done quickly? And let me know once you guys are done. Done? Yeah. Okay. Now, if we look at the indirect quotation, how would this change? Indirect quotation. In the indirect quotation, what do you guys notice the difference? What are the differences? The vertical axis in direct quotation is $1, how many rupees? Now it's 1 LKR, how many dollars? Here it was mainly, the demand and supply was dollars. The demand and supply was dollars. Here demand and supply are rupees. Demand and supply are rupees. Is it clear, brother? Right. Yes, I know you might think, okay, don't we have these diagrams on either page? But I want a side-by-side comparison. That's what I'm saying. Even in page 25, draw this diagram towards the left-hand side of the space given. And then draw the other method that you had in page 24 so that you have a quick comparison. I feel that's something good to have. Okay. So here we have, so now we have 1 USD equals LKR and the quantity of US dollars. So again, the red color rupee demand curve creates the dollar supply curve. This is the supply of USD, US dollars. Then the green color rupee supply curve creates the dollar demand curve. Dollar demand curve. And we have the exchange rate determined accordingly. Right? So that will be 1 US dollar is 100 LKR. 100 LKR. Right. Get that done? So I've given you an ultimate summary in page 25, bottom of the page. Done? Right. So I'll move on. We have the comparison. The comparison is very clear. Dollar supply, rupee demand, dollar demand, rupee supply, and it's the reciprocal of the price quotation when it comes to volume quotation, right? Or direct, indirect. So I know you guys are very clear on this, but if you want to, this is the direct or price quotation method. This is the indirect or volume quotation method. Is that clear? Right. Any questions? We are done with a certain important part. No? We are okay? Sir, can you show the previous slide? Okay, here. So in this comparison that you have in page 25, Putta, it's in black and white. No, you can ink the curves accordingly, right? Using a pen, the two different colors you use. Done? Right. Then let's look at the advantages and disadvantages, or we say the pros and cons, evaluating, right? Evaluating the exchange rate systems that we have. So we start off with, okay, we start off with a floating exchange rate system. What are the advantages and disadvantages, right? Actually, before this, I feel it's better if you guys get a basic idea of the fixed system, then it really becomes a good comparison, Buddha. Then we can learn these points with more knowledge, right? These are tested, so better understand them properly. Okay, can you guys go to page 27 and write this note, please? Par value is given. Just write the small para there. Page 27 under fixed exchange rate system. Quickly write it. Page 27. Done? Great. Okay. Now, the basic description of a floating system is okay. Basic way to explain a floating system is a fixed extended system. Sorry, fixed extended system is a fixed extended system is where sorry, where the nominal exchange rate, that is the present or the current exchange rate, or the, now we use a certain technical phrase here, par value. What is it called? Par value is decided by the financial authority. So two things. One, the value is decided by the financial authority, not demand and supply, financial authority. Second thing is, it is maintained at the same level. Hence, we call it what? Fixed. We don't allow it to change. Financial authority doesn't allow it to change, maintained at the same level until making any changes in the future. Only they can decide to make changes. That's called a fixed regime, fixed extended system. So what is this par value? The process of presenting the value of the domestic currency unit in terms of gold. So that's what we call the gold standard, or another major foreign currency, right? If you use a currency and show this, that's called the reserve currency standard. Earlier, in the Central Bank of England, one of the first central banks in the world, they used to give the value of the sterling pound in gold. Get it? So that because the currency has to be based on, a currency has to be tied up with some kind of a real asset. So what they did was they used gold for that purpose. So they give the value of 1 sterling pound in gold weight. That's why the 1 pound gold, 1 pound sterling pound, 1 pound coin was 1 pound of gold. So that's called the gold standard. What standard? Gold standard. But later on, as our economy is expanded, gold is a very precious metal. So we can't keep equal value of gold at the central bank and print and issue currency. It's practically not possible, right? Because if you look at the large economies in the world, their money supply are in billions. So you can't have that value of gold with you, and every time you issue a currency, you can't match its value with gold. So now today, par value is given, the value of one currency is given in terms of another currency, which is now called, earlier system was called the gold standard, now we call the reserve currency standard. Now, basically what happens is, if the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, as an example, is printing and issuing currency equal to that value, they should maintain reserves. They should maintain some kind of foreign currency reserve, or they should have enough reserves with them to say that the money we have printed and brought to the economy, it has a certain par value, or it has a certain real value is there, because equivalent to the value of money we have printed and issued, we have a reserve for that amount. We have kept some asset for that amount. So today we don't use gold, we use reserve assets for that purpose. So technical way to say that is, central bank in a fixed exchange rate system decide the par value. What is par value today, Buddha? The value of one currency in terms of another currency. That's all. The par value is decided by the central bank. That's called the fixed exchange rate system. Now what happens is, if a central bank is able to increase its reserves, if a central bank has more reserve assets with it, if a central bank has more reserve assets with them, the outcome is they will have more reserve assets with them. the outcome is they can give a higher value for their currency. So if in Sri Lanka we are using a fixed exchange rate system, the value of the rupee will increase if our central bank is able to improve its reserve assets. If our central bank has more and more reserve assets, if we can build up reserves, that means the par value of our currency also increases. We can demand for a higher value for our currency. We can demand for more dollars, more sterling, more yens, more yuans, and other currencies for the Sri Lankan rupee. But that has to be backed up with the par value only increases if we have the par, meaning the comparative value. You bring the value of the currency and the asset to the same level, right? Okay, any questions? So you guys don't need to have a deep knowledge on the concept of par value. You just need to know to use that word, because in marking scheme answers, they expect that. Okay, no questions? Right. Now, in a fixed system, right, we talk about advantages, disadvantages. Remember, the advantages, disadvantages of a floating system are in comparison to fixed comparison to floating. Now the thing about, listen carefully, the thing about a fixed exchange rate system is, if a country wants to have a fixed exchange rate system and maintain a certain par value for their currency and to keep it at that level, what do they need? What are the biggest requirement, prerequisite to have a fixed system? As a country, if you want to have a fixed exchange rate regime, you need to have a sufficient, or we say sometimes a large, foreign reserve has to be there. You need to have enough reserve assets to back up your currency when you ask the world to pay a certain price for it. If you say 1 rupee is $100, and if you keep it there, or $1 is $1 is 100 rupees, or 1 rupee is $0.010. If you want to set that and keep it there, you need to have sufficient foreign reserves to back that up. Otherwise, the exchange rate will not remain at that level. Got it? So one of the biggest challenges for a country who wants to have a fixed system is they need to have a large reserve? Foreign currency reserve. And at any time, the central bank of a country that is having a fixed exchange rate system should be ready to buy and sell foreign currency to keep the exchange rate stable. They'll have to buy and sell. They'll have to have that constant responsibility they should be able to handle. Otherwise, you can't have a fixed exchange rate system. On the other hand, in a floating system, it's not required for the central bank to maintain a large reserve. Why? Because the exchange rate will get automatically adjusted when demand and supply changes, and that automatically the exchange rate and then the BOP will get balanced. Got it? But that kind of a thing doesn't happen in a fixed system because you're artificially deciding. So you have to back it up by having reserves. Right. With that in mind, let's go through this. The advantages of having a floating exchange rate system. I've given this in page 26. If you guys can go to page 26, right? We start top of the page. Advantages. The government is not required to maintain large international or foreign assets or reserves. That burden is not there on the central bank, not there on the central bank. Even though we say government, it's done by the central bank. So that's a clear advantage with that, because building up and keeping reserves is not always easy to do, right? And it could have an opportunity cost. When you have to keep a lot of money in reserve, right? There are other things you could have done with them. So definitely there is an opportunity cost. Then the unfavorable effects that can be created due to the central bank interventions in the forex market operations will be eliminated. In unit 3, what did we learn? Whether it was to protect the consumer maximum price controls, whether it is to protect the producer minimum price controls, guaranteed prices, whether it's to discourage demerit goods taxes, indirect taxes, whether it's to encourage merit goods production subsidies, any of these direct or indirect forms of government intervention leads to a deadweight loss, allocative inefficiency. Allocative inefficiency indicated through the deadweight loss. So government intervention in market under any circumstance is not something we advocate, something we encourage, because we know government intervention could lead to that. What do we call it? Could lead to that allocative inefficiency. So that's what is said in the second point. Thirdly, automatic balancing mechanism. That's a very interesting thing that is there in a floating or flexible exchange rate system. Basically, I've given a note on that in the bottom of page 26. I would like to read the last line, which I've given separately in the bottom of page 26. Are you with me? Right. Let's read the last line within inverted commas. When the exchange rate is at equilibrium, the BOP also represents equilibrium or balance. Because we believe in a free floating system without absolutely no government intervention. That's why we say free floating, free of government intervention. Demand and supply will purely decide the exchange rate. Demand is mainly the import side, supply is the export side. So when demand supply, again, demand is that clear? If you pick that, this is easy. Demand for demand for currency, right? We'll say for now US dollar. Demand represents what, Pudha? Demand represents imports. Supply represents exports. Okay. So when the forex market is at equilibrium, demand equals supply. Yes or no? Demand equals supply. Then we are at equilibrium. Are we okay? Good. Very good. When the forex market is at equilibrium, you know what will happen? Because demand is imports, supply is exports. The BOP is also at equilibrium because imports will equal exports. This automatic balancing will happen. Whenever you bring the foreign exchange market to an equilibrium, automatically the BOP is also balanced. Is that clear? There is a simple idea. I've given a good explanation, but the basic idea is that. Right. Then the possibility of the exchange rate being overvalued or undervalued is eliminated. There will not be overvaluations, undervaluations. Why? Real time exchange rate will get adjusted. There's an advantage and disadvantage both there. Advantage is exchange rate is real time, it will get adjusted. When what changes? Demand supply changes. So no overvaluation, undervaluations are possible. On the other hand, the disadvantage is exchange rate keeps on changing. There's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of what? Volatility. Uncertainty is there because the exchange rate keeps on changing. Because demand and supply are highly dynamic. Demand and supply are highly dynamic. When you have highly dynamic demand supply forces at play, volatility is there. Exchange rate keeps on changing. Okay? Right. Then the final advantage is the creation of an exchange rate which is required to distribute global resources efficiently among competing ends or objectives. Because we always say competitiveness, free and competitive markets lead to allocative efficiency. Lead to allocative efficiency. And there are these, what do you call, incentives that come from the market system, right? Because price mechanism, one of the functions, how many functions are there of the price mechanism? Price or price mechanism. What are the functions of price or price mechanism? Quickly. Unit 1. Touched a bit in Unit 2 also. Can someone unmute the microphone and tell me the functions of price or price mechanism? How many are there and what are they? No? No one to unmute the microphones and tell me? I want to know how many functions and what are they? Okay. Anyone who can unmute the microphone and answer? I'm just saying the 25 students, I'm doing some online classes for them. I get responses. No? Come on. What are the functions? Okay. Yes? No? No. Some of you guys have given an answer in the meeting chat, which is correct. Yes, there are 3 functions: information or signaling, incentive, and rationing. That incentive function is very powerful. That incentive function leads to what? There we go. Information, incentive, rationing, or signaling, incentive, rationing. That incentive function is very powerful, and that leads to economic efficiency, productive and allocative efficiencies. Okay? Yeah. So these are the main advantages. I have briefly outlined them because normally when these questions are given, they are about 4-5 mark questions. So you might need to, like, but similar to what I have given, very briefly outline, Putta. Okay? Right. Stabilization, right? I explained. I think you guys are okay. What are the disadvantages of a floating system? One of the main disadvantages is, as I explained earlier, because trade flows are dynamic, demand supply is dynamic, what happens? There's always frequent fluctuations in the exchange rate. Exchange rate keeps on changing. When anything is prone, or when anything is possible to fluctuate, there comes speculation. Speculation is, you speculate, exchange rate might depreciate in the future, exchange rate might appreciate in the future. You create a rumor in the market and you push that rumor. What will happen? Remember this in your theory classes, I might have mentioned this. We sometimes have this thing called self-fulfilling prophecy. What? And what? Self-fulfilling prophecy. And speculative behavior, we push these things and actually they become a reality. Now we'll say, Buddha, I have $10,000 with me. Okay? I have 10,000 USD with me, which I bought 1 USD. I have purchased for 250 LKR. I want to now sell this 10,000 USD. Right? At the moment, the exchange rate is 255. 255. So I'm not very happy with that 5 rupee return I'm getting on the dollars that I'm selling. So what I do is I speculate and I create a rumor in the market, foreign exchange market, that the rupee is going to depreciate. Rupee is going to what? Depreciate in the near future. So when people fear the rupee is going to depreciate, that means, what is the depreciation? Depreciation is, for 1 US dollar, if you take the direct quotation method, you have to pay more than 250. More than 250. So people fear the depreciation and demand more and more for US dollars. When the demand for US dollars increase, right? Demand, supply, right? USD. When the demand for US dollars increase, now it's at 250. We'll say 250, just an idea, 250 or 255, whatever. Right. When we speculate, it's going to depreciate. And before the depreciation, people want to buy more dollars. That's natural, logical thinking. No? Before the depreciation. So now everyone starts demanding for dollars before the depreciation, fearing this rumored depreciation. So now when people demand for the dollar more and more and more, when the demand for the dollar increases more and more, what will happen? As the demand for dollar increases, the rupee actually depreciates. We will say this becomes 270. Now the rupee has depreciated. No demand, imports, exports, none of the fundamental sources changed. Nothing like that. It's purely a rumor, speculative activity that led to this depreciation of the rupee. And I achieve my objective. Now I can sell a dollar that I have, $1 at 270. Earlier I would have sold at 250. Now each dollar I sell, I get a 20 rupee gain. So I have achieved my objective, but I do it by creating a major volatility in the market. Major what in the market? Volatility in the market. So this is called speculation. It is something we try to discourage much as possible because it leads to unnecessary fluctuations, depreciations, appreciations in the exchange rate. Got it? Any questions? Please ask. Right. The government's fiscal and monetary policies may be less effective in deriving expected outcomes. Why? Especially the ability to use, especially limits. There we go. Limits the ability to use expansionary demand management policies. See, Putra, when the government goes and wants to create economic growth, are you listening? When the government wants to create economic growth, they have to expand the economy. For that, they have to bring few things down. They have to bring interest rates down, simple R. They have to bring taxes down. And they need to also increase government spending. When they do these things, when interest rates are reduced, that's called expansion. Listen, when interest rates are reduced, that's called expansionary monetary policy. When taxes are reduced and government purchases is increased, that's called expansionary fiscal policy. When we have expansionary fiscal policies, monetary policies, yes, the economy will start to expand, output levels will increase, but at the same time, there is a real possibility of demand pull inflation. With demand pull inflation, there is the possibility that exports will get discouraged, imports will get encouraged, and that leads to major problems with the exchange rate. The exchange rate will get depreciated, and then everything we import becomes expensive, and that leads to cost push inflation. So we can start with demand pull and end up with cost push, especially because we have a flexible exchange rate system that react to changes in demand and supply. React to changes in the economy. Get it? Fixed system, no change. Kept fixed. Right. So that's that. Then any domestic inflationary pressure can have a big impact. If inflation slightly gets out of control, if inflation slightly is a bit more than the target level, it will show in the exchange rate. Exchange rate will depreciate. Get it? So there's a big impact coming through the inflation rate to the exchange rate. Because it's a flexible system, demand supply are very sensitive. Then exchange rate fluctuations may lead to abnormalities and inefficiencies in the process of performing international financial activities, especially when you are a debtor and when you have to repay your debts. Now, for example, that happened in Sri Lanka in a big way, right? That was another reason why we couldn't keep up paying our loans. When rupee started sharply depreciating against the US dollar, right? Now, I'm trying to recall the name of the university. It slips my mind. If I'm not mistaken, John Hopkins University in USA. There's a very famous economist called John Hanke. So this person, right, prepares these indexes. One index is the different currencies in the world, how they are performing. According to Hanke's index, at one point in 2022, the Sri Lankan rupee had depreciated around 70% against the US dollar. That is a massive depreciation. It's a collapse of the rupee. Get it? The exchange rate. So, but when something like that happens, if you're in a floating system, everything we import becomes expensive. Okay. So it causes a major inflationary issue in the country. On the other side, now we'll say about the year before, we have taken a foreign loan, a dollar denominated loan, dollar loan. We will say we got $10 million as a loan. $1 we brought into Sri Lanka, $1 we brought into Sri Lanka at 200 rupees. At 200 rupees, we brought a dollar into the country. So for every dollar we got as the loan, we got 200 rupees in LKR. Now the government has repaid the loan. 1 year later, the rupee has depreciated so much. Now, $1 is 300 rupees. $1 is how much? 300 rupees. A 50% increase. 50% depreciation of the rupee. So government got only 10 million, and government doesn't get a benefit out of this. Actually, what I want to say was the government is now having a major currency risk. What is it called? Currency risk. Because the exchange rate depreciates, it's like they have taken not 10 million, it's like they have taken a loan of 15 million. It's like they have taken a loan of 15 million. Why? Because that additional 5 million burden is the depreciation of the rupee. Now, every time they want to repay the loan, when they buy dollars to repay the loan, they only got 200 rupees for a dollar, but now they have to pay 300 rupees to buy a dollar. So when we re-estimate or revalue our foreign debt burden after the rupee depreciation of 2022, we realized our debt burden all of a sudden, for no reason, only for the reason of the dollar depreciating, the rupee depreciating against the dollar, our debt burden has increased by 50% or more. So that's a massive impact on us. And that's one of the reasons we couldn't pay, because currency depreciation has massively overestimated our debt burden. Okay. Again, if you're not clear with that, please ask. I can explain. Finally, short-term disequilibriums within the forex market may compromise the economy's long-term economic growth and development. May compromise the long-term economic growth and development. True enough, no? Because if we in the short term try to keep the exchange rate stable, we are not going to look long term, go for the right economic policies that we need to have economic growth and development. Because remember earlier I explained, when you want growth, you have to expand the economy. Expansion monetary, expansion physically. But the moment you do that, you're afraid the exchange rate will depreciate and cause problems. So you keep the economy under very tight control. The outcome of that is our economic growth slows down, and there's an impact on our ability to achieve development. Yeah. Any questions? You guys need to go through one more time. The tag is there. Self-reading is important. Right. Then we come to page 27 and we look at the advantages and disadvantages of having a what system? Fixed exchange rate system. Okay. Right. Advantages of having a fixed system. One of the main advantages I'm highlighting under 3 points is high degree of certainty because exchange rate rarely changes. When you go to sleep and when you wake up in the morning, today, next week after, next 2 months, exchange rate doesn't change. Even if it changes, slight, very moderate changes. So you have a lot of certainty and confidence when you engage in international economic activities. So those advantages are clearly explained there. First one talks about the benefit of international trade because of this certainty. Second one talks about the benefit for capital inflows, outflows because of this certainty. Third point looks at the loan thing I mentioned earlier, where our debt burden when we engage in international credit or when we borrow from the rest of the world and when we give loans to the rest of the world, we don't have that risk because of the exchange rate depreciating, because exchange rate remains fixed. Okay, if you go through, if you self-read, it will make sense. Right. Other advantages are eliminate speculation. What to speculate? But the exchange rate doesn't change. So someone can keep on saying from morning to evening, exchange rate will depreciate, 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 or appreciate. No one is going to take that guy seriously because that guy is talking nonsense. We have a fixed system. Exchange rate doesn't change. Are we clear? Right. Then high discipline in production activities. Why is that? Because in a floating system, sometimes even if you are not very efficient in production, even if your cost of production increases, the exchange rate appreciation, depreciation can help you manage that, right? But in a fixed system, it doesn't work that way. You have to be very competitive. You have to be very cost effective, because if you become inefficient and if your cost of production increases, right, the exchange rate is not going to depreciate and give you a cover. You understand what I'm saying with that? Did you all get the point or not? I can explain with an example. Can you guys get a pencil to your hand? Get a pencil. If you have one, you definitely have, no? But get a pencil to your hand somewhere in the tube, maybe on top of page 26 or somewhere, right? Right? But I'm saying you have to put it to a diagram. Use the direct quotation diagram. Direct, just a sketch, okay? Direct quotation diagram. That means you're talking about the dollar demand and dollar supply, okay? Right. We'll assume, are you with me? Right. We'll assume at the moment the exchange rate is, quickly draw the diagram. At the moment, the exchange rate is 100 rupees per dollar. The diagram you guys are doing, 100 rupees per dollar. I really don't want to do it here because I want you to do this. Okay, I'm just going to draw the thing and stop. Demand 1 USD equals LKR. That is the diagram I wanted you to draw. This is 100. Okay, right. Quantity of USD. Right. Now, with the exchange rate, we'll say our exporters, our export manufacturers, exporters lack discipline, become inefficient, and do not maintain productive efficiency. What will happen? Their cost of production will increase. As the cost of production increases, they will have to sell their output, or they will have to export at a higher price because their cost of production is increased. To maintain margins, they will increase the price. So now they are selling at a higher price. Listen. When they sell at a higher price, you know what happens? When our export producers start selling at a higher price, what happens? When our export producers start selling at a higher price, the outcome is demand for our exports reduce. So we are now exporting less. Listen, we are now exporting less because our exports become expensive. Our export competitiveness have reduced. So now we are exporting less, meaning exports represent what here in this demand supply diagram? What does exports represent? Exports represent, I'm waiting. Exports represents dollar demand or dollar supply. Why is this taking time? Are you all in the zone with me? Exports represents with a dollar demand or dollar supply. Quickly. Simple question. Quick answers. Dollar demand or dollar supply. No, you can't get confused. You cannot afford to get confused with this. Now this is basic. Exports represent dollar demand or dollar supply. Look, you have the tute. Look at the tute and tell me at least. Okay? If you're confused, look at the tute. Page number 22. I have given the reasons for demand for dollars. Page number 23. You have written the reasons for supply of dollars. Look at and tell me. Come on. 22, 23. That's all. Exports represent dollar demand or dollar supply. Come on, quickly. Save the class. Answer, response. Respond. Exports represents dollar supply. Yes or no? Basic thing, okay? Now, this can't happen again. Exports, supply, imports, demand. And yes, the other way around for rupees. For US dollars, exporters supply dollars, importers demand for dollars. Right. Now, what has happened to our exports? We are done, okay? We now know. My God, don't do that again. Export supply dollars, no? Exports have decreased because our exporters have lacked discipline and become productively inefficient. So prices increase, export demand decrease. Now exports are less. That means with our dollar supply reduces. Dollar supply reduces from S to S1. As dollar supply reduces, what happens to the exchange rate? We were paying 100 rupees to buy a dollar. Now we have to pay 125 to buy a dollar, which means what? The rupee, this increase means there is a depreciation. There is a depreciation. Hold on. How does that help the producers, exporters? The moment the rupee depreciates, all of a sudden, listen carefully, all of a sudden, because the value of the rupee has fallen, everything Sri Lanka exports will appear cheaper to the world. When our currency depreciates, Sri Lankan goods become cheaper, and for us, goods we import from other countries, they become expensive. Now, the rupee has depreciated. The moment the rupee depreciates, okay, when our exporters sell something, earlier, Buddha, when our exporters sold something for $1 US, how much did they get? They get 100 LKR. Now, when they sell something again for $1 US, in rupees, how much do they get? They get 125 LKR. They get 125 LKR. So this change will make exporters happy. Even though they are the reason this happened, even though their inefficiency led to the depreciation, they are protected because they now get more rupees per dollar when they export. So, lack of discipline in production, productive inefficiency is unfairly rewarded in a floating system. In a what system? Because we got from the diagram. In a floating system. But in a fixed system, you don't reward inefficiency. If you are inefficient, you have to bear that loss. Because the exchange rate is not going to change. This benefit the exporters, our productively inefficient exporters in our story got. They got that benefit of 25 rupees more for a dollar because the exchange rate changed. But in a fixed system, exchange rate doesn't change. They can't cover their inefficiencies by allowing the exchange rate to depreciate. Allowing the exchange rate to depreciate. If you have questions, ask. Next, constant and destabilizing expectation of currency devaluation tends to be lower or eliminated. Again, that is connected with that speculative thing we talked about. No one will fear, worry, and create this kind of a fear in people that the currency is going to any moment depreciate. No, exchange rate doesn't change. It's a fixed system. Got it? And higher ability to control inflation, especially if it's cost push inflation, you can hold the exchange rate and make sure that you don't allow the inflation rate to increase further. Cost push, imported inflation, these things we can control. When we learn inflation, we will have a bit of a better idea. But for now, it's not that difficult to understand. In a flexible system, you can't have expansionary monetary fiscal policies that will lead to inflation and depreciation of the exchange rate. But here, you can hold the exchange rate, keep it fixed, and thereby ensure that there are no major inflationary impact on the economy. Right? Then what are the disadvantages of a fixed exchange rate system? I've given a few points, right? And we can explain with a diagram also, right? One of the major issues is there is no automatic balancing mechanism, right? So if the BOP goes into a deficit, it will stay in a deficit for a long period of time because automatically it will not come into a balance. That equilibrium is not there. Then balance of payment imbalances, as I said, connected to the first point, can be a serious problem and they can go on for a long period of time. And another major problem is currency can get overestimated and underestimated. Overvalued currency, undervalued currency, again leads to inefficiency, right? Then this point, I want you to highlight the entire point. The central bank is committed to buy and sell any volume of foreign currency. That's why I said when I started, there's a prerequisite to have a large reserve, foreign reserve. That's a burden, right? So Sri Lanka can't have a fixed system, Buddha. It's not possible. We don't have that reserve strength. Central bank is required to maintain large foreign international reserves or foreign reserves. All this is a burden for the central bank and the economy. The inability to stabilize the exchange rate and the money supply, control the money supply and domestic aggregate demand simultaneously. Both you can't do at the same time. When you try to do one, it will impact the other. Get it? So therefore, it's always a compromise, whether it's the exchange rate stability or maintaining domestic stability, inflation and things like that. When the central bank releases or sells domestic currency, we'll learn in the future, high-powered money in order to purchase foreign currency. This will increase the domestic liquidity, money supply and lead to inflation. Because if the central bank is buying, remember the first point there in red color, central bank has to commit to buy and sell any amount. So whenever they buy dollars, they pay in rupees. What do? They print new rupee coins and notes and pay and buy the dollars. Now new money comes into the public circulation. When people have money, we have a marginal propensity to consume. What do we do when we have more money? We start demanding for more goods and services. Aggregate demand increases. That causes demand pull inflation. On the other hand, if the central bank is to sell foreign currency, right? Then what they're doing is they're absorbing a lot of domestic currency into the central bank. That means the domestic money supply may reduce and that would lead to an economic contraction. Economic money supply and economic contraction. Our growth will get slowed down. So managing both, that is money supply, aggregate demand, economic growth, and then on the other side, exchange rate is not possible at the same time. Both can't be at a favorable level at the same time. Get it? You can't have a high exchange rate or high value for the currency and high economic growth and low inflation. All that can't be done at the same time because The central bank is deciding the exchange rate, and whenever their foreign reserves increase, decrease, things will change. Right. In a fixed system, okay, there are two diagrams you have to draw. Can you guys start with this? Then I can finish this part and we can stop. Okay? Draw this diagram. Remember, hold on. This on the left-hand side, there's another diagram to be drawn on the right-hand side. Get it? You can show this in the same diagram, but I felt that will be complicated. So I thought we'll go for two diagrams. Okay? Right. Draw this first on the left-hand side. Then a similar one is to be drawn on the right-hand side. Quickly do it, Putha, please. Are we done? So what we are trying to show here is based on the actual demand supply or based on the realistic demand supply in the market, right? The exchange rate should be $1 is 1 rupee. But government in the fixed exchange rate system, the government has right. The government has artificially given a par value of $1 is 2 rupees. They are keeping it at a purposefully at the value of the rupee is kept at a lower level by the government because maybe they are trying to achieve certain objectives or make our exports cheap or something like that, right? Countries like China, they do this. This is called currency manipulation, right? So, but now the outcome of this is in the exchange rate market, forex market, right? Foreign exchange market, sorry, forex market, there is a excess supply, no? Because at the fixed exchange rate, which is what we have to follow, you look at the purple color arrow, the cursor, you guys can see that, right? Quickly respond. Yes or no? Are you there? Yes, right. Okay. Now you started the fixed exchange at $1 is 2 rupees, and you reach the demand curve. So the quantity of dollars demanded is only, okay, hold on. Right. Quantity of dollars demanded. Okay. Quantity of dollars demanded. But you guys can only see the slide on the screen. Am I correct? Just want to check this. Yeah. Full screen. You see the slide. Yeah. Great. Okay. So the quantity of dollars demanded, right, is QD here. But at that quantity of dollars supplied is QS because dollar has a higher value. So you supply more, right? So now we have an excess supply. As long as this excess supply continues, there's a lot of pressure in the exchange rate market. Economic activities are at a abnormal situation because we want more dollars. We don't have enough dollars in the market. So what will the government have to do or the central bank have to do? They must buy the excess dollars. If they don't buy the excess dollars, there will be a shortage in the market. Sorry, if they don't buy the excess dollars, there will be a surplus that leads to, as I said, inefficient outcomes. Are we clear? And the value of the rupee will not be, accepted by the market. Import exports will get affected. So the government now has a problem. The central bank has a problem to solve. What is that? Because they are artificially keeping the exchange rate at a lower level. They have created an excess supply of dollars. Now they have to solve that. So they have to give rupees and buy dollars. Sell rupees and buy dollars. That can have another impact on the market as well. Okay? Clear or not? Got it? Right. So let's quickly do the next diagram also. Can you guys get this done on the right hand side maybe? Uda, remember in unit 3, while you draw this lesson, remember in unit 3 we talked about maximum price control, minimum price control. Now, especially in maximum price controls, we said there is going to be unavoidably black markets. Get it? So similar thing happens in the currency market also. Get it? When there is not enough dollars in the market, but there is a very high demand for dollars, people will start selling dollars in the black market at a very high rate. That has a big impact on the economy and the international trade activities. So it is the responsibility of the central bank in a fixed system. Any moment there is a surplus or shortage, they have to solve it. So it's a constant kind of a responsibility which is not easy to maintain. Okay. Done? Right. So there is no real need for me to explain this. It's pretty clear now. So, but with this, right? I will conclude the session for today. So we have completed the almost the first part of foreign exchange rates. I just have to talk about the managed floating. Then we go into the exchange rate concepts from page 29 onwards: appreciations, depreciations, devaluations, revaluations, overvaluations, and undervaluations. 6 pairs of concepts we have to cover, we need to be aware of. Then we look at the different ways we measure exchange rate. That is, we look at the nominal, then we look at the real, and we look at effective exchange rates, nominal effective and real effective. Also, a small discussion on something we have learned a bit before, purchasing power parity exchange rate. So once we cover these things, right? Not that we learn purchasing power parity, we have an understanding about it. So we are done with exchange rates. Okay, so next Thursday, I will try my best to get the lion's share of exchange rates done. Are we clear? Are we okay? Yes, diagram is done. Yeah. So I think overall, a bit complicated things we discussed, but the session was nevertheless productive. So yeah, and any questions you guys have, you can definitely ask, and we'll get get the job done, right? So with that, Putha, I will conclude the session. Okay. So please keep up the good work you guys are doing, and continue to study and stay focused and read those things that you have to read. Okay. Right. All the best.